Hello and welcome to the CodCast. Today I'm joined by Scott Yull from Classic Information Systems, who have the Classic Mining ERP. Welcome, Scott.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for inviting me on your CodCast.
Scott, you're in the chair, CEO of Classic Information Systems, and again, we don't have a dog in the fight, particularly at Coda. We're a client, have been for 3 years, and a very happy client. We're going through some accounting transitions, and you were here helping, and I was a bit surprised that the CEO of a company your size was standing there, sort of sleeves rolled up and getting stuff done with us. But I think that's, there's a couple of questions, I guess, as a follow-up there. We got chatting, I just thought this would be a really interesting opportunity to find out more about you and Classic. But, we'll cover how you got into this business. But, maybe before we do that, what on earth is an ERP and why is Classic different?
An ERP, I'll start with that, is, and thanks for inviting us onto this CodCast.
You're welcome.
It's great. An ERP is it's an acronym for Enterprise Resource Planning, and it's really a business management system. It's a system that tackles all the different aspects of your business, not simply financial. It's project costing, it's plant maintenance, it's the supply chain, it's your business controls, it's your budgeting. It's about the business in its entirety. So accounting is probably 30% of that business, but it's there's a lot more to ERP. And as an exploration company, though, you don't take on the whole gamut of those functions within the system.
No.
They're there for you when you're ready to go into production, which we hope you do.
Right. So you're going right through from basic financial controls all the way through to maintenance, shutdowns,
Correct,
planning, resource, asset management.
Correct. And accounting is probably 30% of that. Like the things that hang around are business controls, which are incredibly important. You need to know what you're spending before you spend it. You need approvals in place. There's a lot of things that happen that should happen in businesses that don't. It's not just a case of an invoice rolls on your desk and you say, I've got to pay that. Well, I didn't approve that.
Yeah. Coda isn't BHP size. We've got 5 full-time employees, a couple of part-time employees, 3 board members. Why do we need an ERP? And again, we're not spending huge amounts of money on this. So for us, your system is 100%. Accounting is 100% of what we do with Classic, right?
No, not entirely. It is in the way if you consider tenement management and tenement costing as being part of that accounting process. And it's a requirement that you submit your Form 5s and you have those documents submitted to the mines department. They're fully reconciled. So yes, that is an accounting function, but it's also it helps you manage your budgets. It helps you manage your spend. It helps you manage your people, and it gives you visibility across the business. Which, if you don't have, and you have a system that is, I would say, smaller systems, you get one person maybe has a visual on the business.
Yeah,
this gives a lot of visibility across the whole business and the different aspects of that business.
I think we've gone quite deep into the weeds quite quickly. You're 2 detail-oriented people, I suppose, having a conversation. But going back a step, and I want to find out a bit more how you got into the industry, but what's your view of sort of the quality of business planning in we'll talk about the small end of town, so the bottom 300, 500.
Well, I guess we don't see a lot of budgeting happening.
No.
Like you might have a drill program that's happening, you're going to spend $1 million. Okay, so what do you do with that and how do you record that? So ideally, you stand up a project and you cost to that project and you follow it and you understand exactly what's happening. Because that project impacts your tenement reporting. It impacts, how much can I spend on this project? Have I got a schedule of rates and a contract in with my drilling guy to understand where he's at? Those things could all be managed in the system quite well.
Yeah. And again, I have a saying internally in Coda, which is what gets measured gets managed. If you don't know where you sit and it's too hard to find out, you'll never manage it and you'll never run it.
Yeah, it's too hard, and it's got to be very easily very easily accessible. So we do introduce BI type reports if you want to have them, but the raw data coming out of the system is usually enough to make a decision on.
Yeah. Now, I mean, going back further up a step again, I've just got hold of the Oztex Form 5B reconciliation, which sounds really boring, but actually this is something that Rob Murdoch from Oztex puts together every quarter. You have to pay a little bit for it. It's worth every cent. And it gives you a reconciliation of the cash balances of explorers. And what blows my mind is that fully a third of the reporting entities, about 750 entities, so roughly 250 entities, have a cash balance of less than $1 million.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing to me.
It's scary. The money those explorers spend, they should, and this is a plug for Classic, but they should spend on a decent ERP, because at that point in time, if they've got less than $1 million, they don't have much to go on. That might carry them forward for 3 months, 6 months, maybe at the most. At the most, and before you've got to raise more capital. I think shareholders want to know that, one, you have something that you're going to invest in your project, that you're spending money, in the ground. But also, if you're going to get more money, they want to know that's being well managed and looked after.
Yeah.
And I think if you've got control of your biggest asset, which is your tenements, and you've got control over those, you know what you're spending, you're not going to get plainted because you haven't reconciled your data. This is where Classic is protecting that core asset.
Your core assets are your tenements, your cash, and your people, right?
Correct.
And what I find is people don't manage their cash. So, for example, we've just raised money. We have a spreadsheet with 21 variables or 21 scenarios we can turn off or on. And every time you do that, you can see the effect on a waterfall chart that tells you at which date you run out of cash and how long that can take. You can then use that to analyze the actions. Once you've done that and you start implementing what you've decided to do, because sadly we can't do all 21 options on the table.
Correct. Yeah.
You then track that really carefully with Classic to make sure it keeps going, right?
Correct. Yes. It's always going to report your actuals versus budget variances, and you can then manage it. And exploration, from what I've seen, it's not a linear spend. Sometimes you'll find something and you'll change your spend. So you need the flexibility to be able to move from one area to another area with your spend based upon what you find.
So I guess in summary, you've got obviously proper management of the procure to pay function.
Correct.
You've got proper tracking of costs.
Correct.
You've got much greater security because of the way that things like payment details and bank details are managed.
Yes.
And the main thing is you've got visibility over your technical spend against tenure versus administrative spend and how you're managing your cash. Is that right? Correct.
All those things are managed well in Classic. And
very well in my experience. I mean, I was saying to our CFO, who's going to pop in a minute, I said, look, can you do a quick soundbite on Classic and why you think it's good? And he laughed. He said, well, that'll be easy because I really do think it's good. I find
great to know.
The financial function people love it because it gives them that visibility. Now, we've gone into the weeds quite deep, quite quickly. Take a step back. How did you founded Classic?
No, I bought into Classic.
Yeah.
Originally, my story is that I've been in mining probably for 40 plus years.
Yeah.
So I started off on the as a fieldy, basically working in exploration.
Wow.
And that was going back working around sandstone and mapping some ground there, and then moved into the mining area, doing some just drilling work, and then went away and came back and decided I love mining, working in it, but for some reason, it was a toss-up between geology and finance, and I ended up going down the finance path. So I ended up working in mines as an accountant and commercial manager, and that led on to me, I guess, discovering ERP systems, because the mines that went into production all needed those controls more so than an exploration company needed to control their spend and their tenements. Whereas a mining company needs that broader scope of business process that the ERP can give them. And that's when you go down to all the different business disciplines that are involved. Just as important, I feel, for an exploration company to have those controls in place, because they are the start, and it also enables them to leapfrog into production a lot easier because everything's in place for them. They just need to turn on more functions.
Yeah, so we at Coda only use a very small percentage of the functions
which is why it's so economic for you as well. Yes.
Yeah, again, and to put this in context without talking numbers, but this is comparable to sort of one of those packages you see with mining.com.au for promotion or Stockhead, or it's a very small cost versus the quality of the data, and frankly, the savings that you can make by averting catastrophes.
We actually replaced the system. You had a separate system, so you had originally had two systems: one for your financials,
yes,
and one for managing tenements and project costing.
Yes.
So our system removed one of those systems, so you're probably making money out of having us in your business.
I think that's a good place to pause. Again, working with your maybe some of your competitors before Classic, we've been very happy with the product. Trying to get MYOB on the phone is a living nightmare. The fact that you'll be in our office, but also on our podcast, is a great reflection on you as a business and your passion for what you do. And you do a lot for the exploration sector.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, we love the industry. Yeah. We're tied in. It's Classic is a mining and exploration product, and we specifically design it for that, where we can track your anniversary budgets, your spend per tenement. It's having that in the system as an inherent part of the system is makes it easy for us.
Yeah, no, it's great. Thank you for coming on. It's been interesting to hear about how you got into this and what an ERP is and what companies are doing well and what they're not doing so well.
Yeah, no, thanks, Chris. Thanks for the invite. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Scott. Cheers.